Okay, thank you, Linda. I'd like to welcome everybody to Growing Concerns for September the 10th. Plan for today is to go through most of the crops, do a little bit of a crop update, and then talk a little bit about fall weed control as we're starting to get into that time of year where some of the crop is off already, and guys are looking at some of the fields and seeing the amount of weeds that have started to grow and have created some issues. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the weeds that I've been hearing about and maybe some of the control measures that we could look at for controlling some of them. As you can see by the picture on the front here, winter wheat is being planted, so that's a good thing. We're getting some winter wheat in the ground. A lot of producers over this past week were able to get some canola off, so we're seeing some of them getting planted right now. Like always, I'd like to start it off with the whole weather outlook and where we're sitting over the last 7 days and since May 1st. And as you can see, our growing degree days pretty much have caught right up to normal. So that's a good thing for some of the crops, especially the corn and soybeans. You can see that most of the areas are right around the 100%. Some of them have actually jumped a little bit above the 100%. So we're good that way. So some of these crops will hopefully start maturing here and coming in. You look at our rainfall amounts, and we're starting to see some areas where we're getting some dry areas starting to show up, and you get in through that Birdle, Shoal Lake area, in through there. There are areas where they're dropping below the norm. They've been fairly dry. I've been missing quite a few of those last rains that have gone through, which hasn't been too much of a problem because harvest is going on right now, and most producers are probably hoping it would wait till after they get it done to get the crop in first. So I guess talking about the spring cereal harvest in general throughout most of the region, producers are harvesting right now. Yield reports that are coming in well above average for all the cereals that have been harvested so far. So that's spring wheat, barleys, and oats. We're getting reports as high as 65 plus bushels an acre on wheat. We're getting reports of 80 to 100 bushel yields on barley in some areas. Oats 90 to 150 bushels depending on varieties. So yields have definitely been higher than we've had in a few years. So those are good. And quality has been fairly good because we have had some fairly dry conditions, and so most of the crop is being graded fairly good. Some of the barley has weathered a bit in the swath, and we're seeing some maybe poor quality barley, but for the malt side of things. But regarding the feed side and the yield, definitely, and the weight is definitely there on the barley. So hopefully that'll make it acceptable for them all. Regarding soybeans, a crop that we've been kind of watching quite a bit throughout the year, they continue to benefit from the warm temperatures that we've been getting, and you can definitely see that some of the crops are starting to get that tinge of brown to yellow in them right now. So when you go out into those fields, you're seeing that a lot of those soybeans are kind of in the R6 stage of development. When you open up those pods on top, a lot of them we're seeing fully developed seed already, and we're we're starting to see some of even the lower parts of the plant, some of the pods turning a brownish color. One of the things I've been seeing in the field is in some areas we almost needed that one more rainfall to help finish off some of these plants. Some of the plants I think are ripening a little bit prematurely. Just dry conditions. The rain that did come this week in some of these areas probably going to be too late for some of those crops as they already are showing the symptoms of a little bit of drought stress. And so the plant ran out of moisture and wasn't able to fill some of those top pods. And I'll have some pictures of them, of some of those pods, as we go through the presentation. As I mentioned, some of the pods, or some of the plants are definitely showing some pod color change, and that would be you know, going into the R7 stage. And again, this is variable throughout the field. So when you go into the field, you're going to see probably both the R6, R7 stage out in the field. Here's a field that was not as under as much moisture stress as some of the fields I was in, and you can see that those top pods are still fairly green. When you look at the bottom pods, I know it's that same field, you can see them just starting to get some turn to them. So you know, again, you're in that R6 stage, which isn't bad, especially with the pods starting to fill on the top. We're getting closer to I guess that time period where a frost wouldn't be as devastating as it would have been, say, a week ago. So forecasts, we had Mike on last week, and he was talking that we should get a couple weeks here. So you know, reports today are talking, I think tonight, going down to 4 or 5. So you know, it's getting close, but if we can still scrape through a few more days here, it definitely is helping. Here are some pictures of some of those pods I was talking about, and this was taken from that first field where you've seen a lot of the plants were starting to brown, and you can see the top pods, and you can see in this case here where one of the seeds actually dried out and actually never did produce a viable seed. And when you get looking at a lot of those plants and opening those pods, you're seeing quite a few of those in the field, and basically just you know, just didn't have enough moisture to finish filling that plant. So yeah, you can see that there. Also, you can see a lot of pods in that field too that only have two developed seeds, and the seeds are fairly small. So again, we're showing the you know, the effects of the lack of moisture. And if we would have had that one more rain in those areas, those definitely would have filled out better. And you know, just another picture again of one of the pods that I was finding in that same field. Wherever you go to that field where moisture was not an issue, and the upper pod of there is still fairly green, not as much moisture stress there in that field, and those seeds are developing fine, and definitely potential for a better yield in those fields. So when you're driving around and you're seeing some of those fields that are ripening fairly fast right now, I think those ones are probably not going to be as high yield as some of the fields that are still on the green side. And I think the majority of the cases, the fields I've been walking into anyways, a lot of those pods just are drying up instead of finishing off the way they should be. Still seeing a fair bit of sclerotinia showing up in a lot of the soybean fields, and talking to some of the guys that we're seeing this issue more in, and it's the soybeans on canola stubble is where I'm seeing probably 80% of the fields where I'm finding sclerotinia, and fairly easy to find it too. And and it was soybeans on canola stubble. So I guess that's something we need to watch for. This definitely was a good stand. This picture of the field I was in, the soybeans were waist high and nice and thick, but you could see where the areas where the sclerotinia has taken over. The plants are drying up and ripening prematurely and really not developing any pods at all. So it's going to affect yield as well. So I guess that's something we need to be watching for as well, and when we're going to be growing soybeans in the Southwest here. With that, I got a picture emailed to me regarding the harvest soybeans that we got some guys in the eastern part of the province that started harvesting, and this is in the Sanford area, and soybean harvest has started in the eastern part of the province. So that's a good thing. They're starting to come off. This crop looks really good, so I imagine the yields there are going to be, you know, average to above average anyways. Switching over to corn, this was a picture of the corn that we had in last week's webinar, and you can see at that stage we were kind of in that blister stage, and we're still needing probably 40 days to maturity. Same field, basically just a week later, and seeing a lot of yellow to the cob or the seed already. So we've basically gone from the R3 to the R4 stage. Those seeds are turning a yellowish color, but they still have a fair bit of juice in them. And I thought I had a close-up of it, but there's no dents in the seed yet. But if you grab those seeds and squeeze them, there's a lot of milk in them and a little bit of starch. So we're just getting into that R4 stage. So again, they're moving along. We're in that R4 stage, and I showed this chart last week, and saying that we still needed about that 35 days. Well, we're down our 38 days, I guess. We're into that dough stage now, so we're probably that's still the 30 days, I guess, to get that crop into about that 30-35% moisture, where we'll be able to harvest it. Right now, at this stage, you're looking at about 70% moisture in that crop, so still a lot of moisture in that crop. This was a chart that's put out by Mafry that is on the website, and again, just kind of what I like about this one is it's if you look at the R4 stage or the dough stage, you got 30 to 35 days. There's the moisture content. So I mentioned earlier that's about that 70% moisture. I like the percent yield loss. Let's say if we were to get a killing frost right now, that's where you would be. So we're still in a critical time for the corn to bring it in, and basically what your test weight would be in that time period if you were to go out and harvest it right now. So we probably need another 2 weeks to kind of get us past the stage where we're going to be we would experience a major yield loss in the corn. If we could get into that half milk line area before we get a killing frost, that definitely would help out. So we're looking at about 20 days, not quite 20 days to get us there. So we need a couple of weeks here. Would definitely help out. Sunflower crop. Haven't been in a lot of sunflower crops this year, and I've been in a couple of fields this past week, and they are looking really good. This is a crop of confections north of Cirrus, and heads are huge. They're developing seed right to the outsides of the head. They are coming along really well. I didn't see. I've seen very little disease in the crop, and seen lots of heads that were huge. And even with this, it was the crop was fairly thick. So with all the plants that were there, we were still seeing some really nice head development. So that's a good thing for the sunflowers. Like I mentioned, not seeing a whole bunch of disease in them, so potential for sunflowers is looking really good right now. One of the things we were seeing is on some of the heads you could see lygus bug. Again, not a huge issue, but I guess with confections, a lot of guys are going to be spraying anyways, so they'll be taking care of them. But lygus bug, just this was a kind of a nice picture to show the V marking on the back, and if you see the V on the back of on his back there, that lets you know that's the lygus bug. So if you're out there scouting or looking at your fields, that's what you'd be looking for. Again, even though we were out in the field yesterday, I wasn't seeing a whole bunch of damage from the lygus bug, and we weren't finding very many of them at all. I'm going to jump over to winter wheat, and I mentioned at the beginning that we were getting some producers that are planting winter wheat right now, and we were able to get the 2013 winter wheat yield comparisons. Basically, the McVet trial stuff has been taken off, and a lot of the information has been put together, and so it's good, timely information. I guess if you haven't booked your seed yet, or if you're looking for a variety, here's some information as to where you can, what the varieties have been doing in the province. And one of the varieties that I've been getting quite a few calls about this past week or past couple of weeks is the variety Flourish, and you can see that the average yields for all the plots in the different areas, it range from 61 bushel average for all of them to as high as, I guess, 97. And when you look at Flourish, it's kind of right in that average. Couple plots it was below average, but right in the average. When you compare it to, say, Falken, which is one of the old standbys, I guess, just a little bit lower Falken was doing, and then some of the new varieties that are going to be coming out. And when you go to the next chart here, this kind of is the one that you'd be seeing in Seed Manitoba, and it's a little bit blurry, but I wanted to get it big enough, and I think if you spend some time, you could still go through and see what the numbers are. But when you look at Flourish, its average yield is around 80, which is pretty much right in the top end of all the varieties that are out there. But there's still a lot of the other varieties that are doing fairly well. That if you can't find those ones, that variety, the other ones are definitely there. And then you got your characteristics right across. So this is good information if you haven't decided on a variety yet. Also let you know which ones are going to be the general purpose ones. So like in the past, if you've been growing say Ptarmigan or Raptor, you know that they're going to be in the general purpose varieties, and that if you're looking for one that you can go to the #1s and 2 red winters, you need to be looking at something like a Falken or Buteo or Flourish or McClintock or those varieties. So again, just a nice chart that breaks it out for you so you know where you're going to be sitting with the varieties you're growing. A little bit about alfalfa. I've been getting a fair few calls about the alfalfa and the second cut in most cases. In some guys' cases, I guess it'd be the third cut, but in the majority of the cases, it's the second cut. And the second cut has come on fairly well. A lot of it is, 2.5 feet tall now. It's getting out into full flower, and producers are calling, should I be going out there and taking that cut? And I guess the thing we need to watch for with alfalfa is the critical fall harvest period. And I guess when you decide to cut your hay stands late in the season, it is especially important. In the case of alfalfa, was observe the critical fall harvest period, also known as the fall rest period. And I guess what they're saying there is it's an area of time when the alfalfa needs to replenish its root reserves so it can survive the winter. And if you go out and cut at this time of year, what could happen is that alfalfa will start regrowing if we get good growing conditions, and it's going to be using its root reserves to grow. And by doing that, you're putting your stand at risk because you're weakening that root system for the winter. And by doing that, you could see some winter kill. So harvesting during this period will reduce your winter hardiness, reduce your stands. So if you can't harvest before that time period, or where you give your crop enough time to build up its root reserves, the best thing for you to do is wait till after a killing frost to go out and harvest. And that's kind of what I've been telling producers right now. They say, well, when's the killing frost going to come? And really, we're in that time where it could come any day now. And usually the rest period, or the grace period you need to give your alfalfa, is approximately 6 weeks before that killing frost for it to replenish its root reserves. So we're basically looking, if you hadn't cut it by the middle of August, you're probably best to wait till after a killing frost, to go out there and take that next that last cut for the year. Taking the cut at that time, you really haven't lost a lot. You may lose a little bit in quality because, as you've seen by the picture, a lot of it is flowering right now, and you may get a lot more fiber in the alfalfa. Still going to make good feed, and by taking it at that time, you're not sacrificing your winter stand. And what you'll see by doing that is you'll probably, anything you might gain by taking the stand early this year, you'll gain that back next year in your first cut, because it'll just get going faster. It'll develop faster. You'll have a thicker stand. So it's just better to wait for that extra time period. I was able to find this for areas where you know, kind of your last days for cutting alfalfa would be, and as you can see, basically throughout the whole province, you're looking at, you know, the mid to the end of August is kind of your last days for taking alfalfa for a winter, before freezing. And if you haven't taken it by that time, the best thing to do now would be to wait for a killing frost, and then go out and take it then, and just be ready to cut as soon as you can after that killing frost, because the plants will dry down fast after the frost, and you just have to be ready to go. Well, that's kind of what I had for the crop update today, and what I wanted to talk about next is a little bit about.
Lionel, I do have a question here. It says Falken will be GP by the next harvest, isn't it?
Yeah, actually that's true. When I was reading that on the map there, that kind of clicked in my head, but I wasn't 100% sure, so I didn't want to say anything. So I was going to recheck that, but I'm almost positive that that's true with Falken, that it is going to be a general purpose by. So if you're planting it now, Falken will be general purpose by next harvest. Any other questions, Linda?
No, that's it right now. Thanks, Lionel.
Okay, thanks for that input. That was good. Good to get that on there. With that, I guess, like I mentioned, I'm going to go into a little bit of the weed issues, or weed control, fall weed control issues that we're going to be looking at over the next while here. And as the harvest is coming off, guys are going to be looking at. Been getting some questions from guys that are looking at sowing winter wheat, or are planting winter wheat right now, as well as just some of the guys that have noticed problems in the fields. And what they've been seeing is over the last, you know, week to 10 days, a lot of those weeds that have been in that canopy throughout the growing season have gotten to be a little bit bigger, and now we're starting to make some of the fields look a fairly bit dirty. And guys are wanting to look at ways of cleaning them up this fall yet, because if harvest keeps going the way it is, we may have some fall period here to do some cleanup, especially if we don't get that killing frost. And like I mentioned, a lot of the fields are starting to show weeds that at this time of year that make us start asking questions of what we need to do to control some of these weeds. So I'm going to go through a few of the ones that I've been getting calls on, and a few of the ones that have been creating some problems over the last couple years, and maybe you know, this time of year is maybe something we can do to start looking at controlling some of them. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Foxtail Barley, and Foxtail Barley is becoming more and more of an issue, especially over the last couple of years when we've had some wet conditions, and it seems to thrive when there's not a crop, when there's not a lot of competition. It just seems to take over and spread throughout a field. And throughout the growing season this year, we didn't really see it as being as that bad of an issue until later on in the year, and then all of a sudden you can start seeing it popping up throughout a lot of the cereal crops anyways. And so I've been getting calls as what guys could do to look at controlling it. And the picture I took here and is pretty common throughout all Southwest here, and I think guys are wanting to get this back off the field. And so in the fall, what can we do to get rid of this thing? Well, if you had the chance to spray before you see the seed head development, and that's with a picture of is all seed head development already, so that's past that stage. But if you could have gone out there and sprayed it with glyphosate when before the bottom leaves started to turn brown, you probably would have started your control period then. And but in most cases, a lot of guys are past that point because the basically what happened is you started to notice the problem being more of a problem as the crop started to mature, and at that time you were seeing seed head showing on the Foxtail barley. So basically what we're looking at right now is what we see in the picture. So after the seed head is development, you can go out there and hit it with glyphosate. Need to increase the rate you're going to be going at with glyphosate. One of the things you need to, and I'm not going to give any rate amounts for glyphosate because there's so many different products out there, and you need to, depending on which product you're using, you're going to need to go at a certain rate. But if you were going to say compare it to the old glyphosate products, you'd be wanting to go out there with at least 1.5 liters plus to when it's in this stage to try to get some control, and that's going to be your start of control. That's not going to get rid of it for forever, or for next year off your field. That's your start of control. If you're not able to go out there and get it sprayed right now, another thing I would look at doing is getting it cut and then either baling it and then taking those bales off the field and burning them, or cutting it and burning it, swaths in the field. Get some of that material out of there because it's going to be a hindrance all fall, and also what's going to happen is all that seed from those seed heads is going to be moved throughout your field, whether it's through wind or even through fertilizing this fall if you're going to be doing that, or seeding next spring. You'll be moving that seed bank around. So the more you can get out of there right now, the better. So get out there if you can spray it, and even if you do spray it, I'd wait probably a week to 10 days and then go out there and cut it and bale it and get it off there. And so that's the start this fall. The other thing you can do is after you've got that taken care of, you can maybe go out there and do a little bit of tillage and just try to get some of those areas worked up. In the spring, I think, is where your next or part 2 of your control is going to happen with Foxtail barley. And the problem we always have with guys with Foxtail barley is it usually gets going fairly early in the spring, and a lot of guys aren't really ready to do their burn-offs yet. They're waiting for all the other weeds to come. So what I've been doing with guys is getting them to go out and spray early in the spring, and then when they do their burn-off, that'll be kind of the second application on it. And basically what that does is it gets those first leaves that just start coming with it, and you're setting it back. Every time you do that, you're taking away more of that seed bank and you're getting control of it. Next thing to do is to grow a competitive crop in that area, because you need to get a good stand and you need to be able to get something growing in there that's going to be competitive. If you get a competitive crop in there, you'll find out that the Foxtail barley won't be half as bad as it was in the previous year. So just a couple things you could look at doing, and then maybe pick a crop that you can maybe spray some of the products that will have some activity on them throughout the growing season on the Foxtail barley. Like if it's with a cereal this year, maybe a Roundup tolerant or glyphosate tolerant canola, and this way you can be hitting it more than once throughout the growing season and getting control of it. So again, it's one of those ones that we're seeing a lot of problems over the last little while here. Wet conditions have brought it on because there hasn't been competition. It's spread, and I think a lot of guys are trying to get a foothold on it now. So this is one that we're definitely getting a lot of calls on. So it's more than one application control here. Next one I'll go to is dandelions, and Dandelions, again, can be a huge problem in some fields. They have been fairly easy to control in the past, and basically what you need to do is treat them like a fall weed that needs to be controlled, because if you don't control them in the fall, they're going like crazy early in the spring, and you need to set them back or get that deplete that root reserve that they have, so you can get control of them that way. And if you've ever pulled out a dandelion, you know their root systems are fairly huge and fairly extensive. So there's a weed that is again going to probably need more than one application, one method of controlling it. When you look at the control measures, it's going to depend on the size of your dandelion. So if we're looking at controlling them in the fall, they're usually fairly big. So if they're fairly big, your rates are going to have to be higher. So that's one thing you're going to need to look at doing. They are things you can do, like add some top-ups to your glyphosate. And one of the cautions with that is just be prepared or aware of what you're planting on that field the following year. If you're going to look at something like a dicamba or anything that will leave a residue in the soil, make sure the crop you're growing next year can be growing on that land. We've had a lot of problems with guys doing top-ups in the fall and then planting crop next year, and then find later on that there was some residue in the soil that wasn't enough to kill the new crop, but enough to set it back, enough to cause head injury later on. And then basically by the time it's determined what the issue is, we're past the point of doing anything, like reseeding or anything like that. So definitely be aware of what products you're using and what crop you're going to be planting for the following year. So that goes with quite a few of the broadleaf weeds, whether it be dandelion, whether it be Canada thistle. You know, Canada thistle is another fairly common one that we like to control this time of year. Again, if you're adding top-ups to it, be aware. Straight applications of glyphosate does a fairly good job if you're going to be growing sensitive crops next year. And just some of the rates you may have to be using might be a little bit higher for the glyphosate, as well as you may need to do a burn-off in the spring as well with a lot of these, because I really think the one application in the fall isn't going to eliminate your problem. It helps reduce your problem, but if you could be on a program where you're going to be doing it again in the spring, then you're going to get on top of these weeds and start setting them back. Quackgrass, kind of one of the old ones that we've been controlling for years, and a lot of guys have pretty much got this one under control. Not usually a big issue anymore. I think the biggest thing is for controlling it in the fall. A lot of times guys will get out there maybe a little bit too early to try spraying it, and I think one of the recommendations you should probably look at following is make sure that quackgrass plant is, you know, at least 8 inches tall before you go out in the fall and try getting some control of it. It's a good time to get control of it, but you know, make sure you've got some good regrowth before you go out there and spray it. And again, you know, with the price of glyphosates again come down, it's not a bad idea to maybe bump your rate if you've got some areas where the problem has become more of an issue, and this way you can get control of it and get it gone and out of the field. Roundleaf mallow. This one is definitely creating or getting a few phone calls about, and a lot of guys are starting to see this starting to move across fields and starting to become more of an issue. And again, fall is a good time to start controlling some of this one too, and setting it back a fair deal. And so if you've got roundleaf mallow in some of your fields, again, a good shot of glyphosate this fall is a good starting with it again, and and then turn around in the spring and then hit it again in the spring. One of the things with roundleaf mallows, it tends to grow fairly close to the ground, and with that, when you're doing your strike cutting or you're swathing a canola, you're not really doing a whole lot of damage to that plant. So it just continually grows right through, and it seems like it's just kind of a very healthy plant this time of year, and I think it's a good opportunity right now to get out there and give it a good drink and start setting it back. Volunteer canola in soybeans. I've been getting a couple of calls on that. Really, probably, I keep telling guys it's probably not going to be an issue, because by the time you do your canola, your soybeans, the canola is probably going to shelled out already and be dried up anyways, and it'll be just as dry as the soybeans. So it's probably not going to be an issue. But if you are looking at are needing a product, there are some products that would work for work in soybeans to dry down some of the crop. I think in most cases we'll probably just let it stand and let it dry down on its own, and then go in and harvest it. So again, it's not really a crop that I'm too concerned about for the dry down portion. I think frost is going to be our dry down thing with the soybeans, and I think that'll clean it up that way. So not a real big concern there. With a lot of the guys that are planting winter wheat and fall rye, I think just some of the winter annuals that are common out there that we still need to be prepared to do our weed control now, because if we don't do it now, we're going to have some problems with those weeds in the spring. And some of the weeds, the other weeds like cleavers and those type weeds, which are winter annuals that will get going this time of year. And when we're seeding, they're not very big. We don't think they're going to be an issue, but if we don't get a control of them now, they're going to be an issue by spring, by the time we get out there and spray. And we've seen that this year with some of the winter wheat fields, because the guys that kept the winter wheat fields, what happened is a lot of those fields became fairly weedy just because of the fact that there wasn't enough competition from the winter wheat. And what happened is that by the time the broadleaf weed control happened, those weeds were past the point where they were getting good control. So make sure if you're out there sowing winter wheat, don't forget your fall burn-offs. If you've got the winter wheat in already, be watching the fields before the winter wheat comes up, and be ready to hit it with a shot of glyphosate before the wheat comes through the ground. That's probably a good option right there. That kind of ends my presentation on fall weed control. I kind of went through the ones that we've been kind of getting the majority of the questions on, the problem ones that are usually there that we're dealing with in the fall. And I found this moisture level thing for grain storage, and thought it would be good to put on the webinar today, just because it's the time of year where guys are harvesting, and most guys know them, but it's sure nice to have a little chart hanging around. So if you don't have this, it's something that you can use. It's basically the safe storage moistures for most of the grain. And I actually got a phone call from somebody the other day saying that they were concerned about some of the grain that was going in the bin. And I guess while I'm talking about that, I might as well say that it'd be a good opportunity to start watching your bins, because a lot of grain went in fairly fast and went in at a fairly warm temperature over that last short period of harvest here. And just because it was dry on the moisture meter, if it goes in at a high temperature, as it cools down, it can start creating problems in the bin. So just keep an eye on your bins, and if you get time, maybe turning some of those bins wouldn't be a bad option.
Lionel, I do have a question here. It's they want to know what rate of glypho do you use first thing in the spring for foxtail?
What I've been recommending with guys is the leader, and that would be liter of the traditional glyphosate products. So depending on which one you're using, you know, a liter equivalent, I guess, is what I would be recommending. And got to remember, in the spring they're fairly small, so it's not going to take a whole bunch to kill them. And but I'm also recommending that guys go in there probably twice, because the first time you'll be spraying those spots, it's more like a spot spraying or a patch spraying, because you know where your foxtail problems are. And when you go to spray those areas, you're probably not seeing a whole bunch of other weeds growing in the field at that time. And it's almost a hassle being out there spraying, but it has shown that if you can get it then, and then when you do your burn off when you normally would do it, you'd be getting the next growth. And by that time, your crop is going to be coming up shortly, and then you've got the competition from the crop. So it has been working. So that's I would be going at the liter. So nothing over and above what you normally would be using. Okay, I guess with that, I don't really have too much else to present today. Regarding the CCA credits, if you're watching the webinar on a recorded webinar, we just need you to send in a brief summary of what was discussed today. And the contact people, again, it's myself and Linda Rickman, and there's our phone numbers and our email addresses. These are the contact people from AFRI in the Southwest and South Parkland. And I hear the bins are busting out there, so we're getting lots of grain coming in, so that's a good thing. And I've seen this one on Twitter where they've got a 60-foot header now on a John Deere combine. So 60-foot header, I can't imagine the amount of grain to be coming into that tank, or be the guy hauling grain from it. Especially this year, I couldn't imagine hauling barley from it. So I guess with that, if there's no questions, Linda,
There's no questions at this time, Lionel.
what's that?
There are no questions, sorry.
Oh, okay. Good. Well, we'll see everybody next week.